So we're here in Restaurant in Blackburn. We have another buy, refurb, refinance opportunity. And the first thing I want to talk about actually is just this area. I mean, number one, it's a really clean and smart street. And number two, we've got developments over there. We've got a new build. We've actually got the footings in the ground for some more houses over there. So we're in a really good area that other people are clearly sort of going, you know what, it's a nice place to live, it's a nice place to invest. And this is a perfect spot for a buy, refurb, refinance. Here we have a 3-bed terraced house. It's an awful lot bigger than it looks. In fact, compared to the normal houses we're in, we've got big rooms, high ceilings, a nice long extension at the back. It's a good sized house. It doesn't look it, but when you get in, you see it. And I love this sort of like front gardeny, yardy type sort of situation that's going on here. It's really nice, really easy to clean up, and it just looks smart. So let's jump on in and see what it is we need to do. So as you can see, fantastic high ceilings. The other thing I want to point out is we've actually got fairly modern electrics. This is rare. Most of the houses we go in desperately need a rewire, amongst usually a lot of other stuff. The only real thing about this house that's slightly concerning is the floor. You can see in places, especially when we move in there, the person who used to own this just did loads of really odd jobs. It looks like he's chopped the floor up quite a bit. So we are going to lift up bits of it and just have a look to make sure there's nothing down there that's going to be scary. But in theory, everything looks fine. It feels pretty solid. We shouldn't have any problems, but you just never know with these houses. We've had to change out the entire floor in a couple of the 2-bed terraces that we've done. So we obviously don't want to miss anything. We want to make sure this house is as safe as it possibly can be if the tenants are going to live here. This room is basically just going to be stripped out. The plasterwork by and large is okay. There's a few areas of damp, but a lot of this, this is where it's been lined. We can take the lining off, re-put it back on, and it should be fine when we painted it up. Obviously, we're going to tighten up the fireplace, remove these because these are pretty just horrible, to be honest with you. And of course, we're going to get rid of our current sitting tenants, the mushrooms. We do not want damp in this house, and you'll see some more of it upstairs. The guttering is this really old style, cast iron type style of guttering. And it is a bit more expensive, it is a bit annoying. You get it all the time up here in Accrington and Blackburn and Rishton and Darwin, all the other sort of surrounding areas. It is a little bit more expensive. The problem you've got is a lot of the time it gets repaired or replaced, and you've got loads and loads and loads of breaks and little pieces of gutter. Problem there is you're just asking water to pour out the side, and this is why we have damp down the front of this house, and indeed down the back as well. Otherwise, the house is actually in fairly good condition. We are going to tidy it up, as I say, so I'm all new joinery throughout, new woodwork, obviously level off the floor, again, rip out the fireplace here, decoration throughout. People love high ceilings. It's really, really going to help with our end value. So you can see on this rendering up here, it's very, very patchy. You can see the paint has obviously all been entirely washed off, and you can see that the render is beginning to fail. It's cracked, it's blotchy. Some of it is actually beginning to come off of the wall. Now this isn't great because when render cracks, water can get in, but it can't get back out again. So as the water runs down the back of the house, it's getting sucked into the wall, and then it can't get out anywhere. So that's why you're getting damp on the inside of your house. And all that is coming from the gaps in the gutters where you can see all the joins, where water is just leaking out where the seal has just failed, running down the side of the render, which has then also got cracks as the water's getting in again, and then it has nowhere to go. So realistically, the fix here is to fix the render, is to repoint around the window, and it's to replace the goods. You've got to do all three, or you're still going to have that damp problem coming back again, which is really not what you want to do. Also, while we're out here, obviously we'll tidy all this rendering up as well. Most of it can be salvaged. We can just repaint it, sand back the old stuff. Here, we're probably going to smooth this over a little bit, but it's not too bad. Ultimately, this is an outdoor stone wall. It's never going to be perfectly smooth, perfectly square. So we'll tidy that up. We'll give it a paint. Out here, these beautiful green concrete slabs will be jet washed, and they'll come up looking brand new. Again, super cheap way of making a real big difference to the outside here. Here is your bathroom window, and obviously a vent for an extractor fan that will go in there. So otherwise, this is pretty good. The back gate's all right. We'll just give it a paint, and yeah, it works fine. You can see here we've got a pretty old door, and you can see that something used to be screwed into the door of the place. I mean, you can have these filled, but the handle is knackered, and quite frankly, it's just pretty horrible. So I have a new back door put in. Moving into the kitchen, we have a bit of a double step here. We may decide to raise this part of the floor here a little bit. That being said, it's unnecessary. It isn't going to affect our end value. There's not really a lot of point spending money on things that don't affect your end value or your rentability. And this is one of those things where it'd be nice to do, but if the budget doesn't allow it, we're not going to do it. There's no point spending money on things that you're not going to see back on the back end. One thing you will see on the back end, however, is a kitchen. And this kitchen actually, I'd say, is usable, but it's certainly not up to standard for the other houses that we do. It's a bit horrible, a bit old anyway. It's got a couple of years of life left in it, but we are certainly going to replace this kitchen. New cooker hood, new oven. We'll have a fridge freezer in here as well. So it'll be a really nice kitchen when we're done with it. Put a nice modern light in as well, no fluorescent tubes. The boiler's an interesting one. In theory, it works. However, we're not entirely sure about it. So at the moment, we've assumed we're gonna have to replace it. But we're gonna start off just by seeing if we give the system a flush and we service the boiler, if it will fire up and we can get some heat through it. If we can't, we'll replace it. If we can, we're quids in. Happy days. Moving through here, we have a nice utility space. And to be honest with you, given this is the only bath in the place and it's not that big, I think the best thing we can do is actually to rip out this stud here, rip out this stud here. We don't need the additional back door, especially not a wooden one. So we'll block this up, we'll reskim this and open it up into a nice big bathroom. And that way we can get a sink, a toilet, and obviously a nice L-shaped bath in there as well. Nice glass screen, something modern, something chic. Other than that, that's pretty much it for downstairs. Like I say, this is a fairly simple refurb. There's not an awful lot to it. And there's no major problems with the house, which is always good news. Personally, if it was me, I'd have had the stairs come in from the other side. But I mean, we're not gonna actively go about knocking out brick structural walls and putting lintels in unnecessarily. So we are gonna leave it as it is. But it does make a bit more sense if the stairs would have been the other side. At least they're running the right way compared to where the front door is. This archway I also think is a little bit low. And the lintel, you know, is at least sort of up there. So we might be able to square this off and make it a little bit more modern. We don't need to go excess here. This is just a nice small terraced house. It doesn't need marble floors or 50 grand kitchens, and we'll start moving walls around unnecessarily and making everything open plan. The house is a nice house. Even on the second floor, we've got fantastic head height. Whilst it looks fairly dated and horrible and old, the walls are in pretty good condition. We can get away without having to plaster most of this wall. We take the lining off and reline it, we should be okay. We're obviously gonna have new doors, new joinery. And if we move into this room here, you know, you can see that actually it's not a bad size either. Again, we're missing underlay on the floor. We're gonna need a new radiator on here. And you can see the level of damp. Look at that, that's all just growing in from all the moisture in the wall because we're missing the rendering on the back. In fact, even from here, you can see some of it. The pointing is pretty horrible. We've got some pretty terrible boxing in here. So we're gonna redo that, make it look a little bit more smart. Doesn't need to be anywhere near as garish. It's just kind of stealing attention of your eye when you walk in the room. And you don't want that. You want to steal attention to the stuff that's in your room, your bed, you know, all that kind of stuff. The stuff that where you have put it in rather than the wall itself or some pretty horrible woodwork. Otherwise, this room's in pretty good condition. It's good size. We need to fill the walls in a little bit. And yeah, we make a nice little bedroom. And this is the master bedroom. And this again is a really, really good sized room. And again, massive high ceilings, really, really gonna help with the end value here. And here is the damage that we've got from the gutters. So you can see the state of this wallpaper. In fact, it's physically wet to the touch. I mean, look, it holds itself on almost. That's how wet it is. But the plaster itself, whilst being wet, is actually in really, really good condition. It's smooth. And I think after we sand that down and give it a quick treat, obviously solve the damp on the other side of the wall, it will look really, really good. Really happy that we're able to save the plasterwork here. That's a big expense saved on this house. Even something like this radiator is fine. We can clean it up. Needs a bit of a clean, maybe a paint. So you obviously need to straighten it up. There you go, you can see that. Not exactly sturdy, so we need to fix that. Obviously just solve all the damp in here, but otherwise, paint, new door, new carpet, and away we go. This is a 3-bed house. It was always designed to be a 3-bed house. Whilst the floor space is pretty good and the ceiling height's great, this 3rd bedroom is not that big. And we do have some wood boxing in here, and there is a wall in here, which we certainly know is brick downstairs and most likely is gonna be structural. But if we can take it out, then we're gonna take that out, take this out, take all this out as well, just to give this room an extra couple of square meters. It is long, it is narrow, but it's a 3rd bedroom. And people will like this, and you can put a nice cot in this. It'd be good for a baby room, or even just as an office or a study. It worked really, really well as that. It doesn't have to be a bedroom, even though it'd be a 3-bedroom house. Otherwise, yeah, whilst it might be narrow, it is a good size. We consider putting in the bathroom up here, but it's gonna be better in this occasion to have 3 beds and 1 bath rather than 2 beds and 2 bath. It's gonna make it a little bit more usable, a little bit more sellable, a little bit more rentable, and ultimately we think it's gonna get us a higher end value, which is what all of this is about. Same story again here with this radiator. The likelihood is, because we're gonna need a new TRV valve put on the end, when we go to put a new one on, it's just gonna strip the threads, the radiator will start leaking, and we're gonna have to replace it. So any of these really old radiators like this, we're always gonna replace. And the final thing about this house, which is a bit quirky, is we have a random UPVC back door in a bedroom. Look at this. And you can just step out obviously onto the flat roof if you really want to do that and go for drinks. We're not gonna do this. We're gonna take this door out. We're gonna put a window in the top half. On the bottom half, we're gonna use a bit of UPVC, kind of like the bottom half of a conservatory window, if you will. So we'll box it out to here using plasterboard, and that way we have a nice big window ledge, and obviously just a window on the top in which you can open for fresh air. From the outside, it'll look fairly similar to what it does now, but from the inside, it'll look brand new with a brand new window, and it saves us having to block something up. This is a cheaper way of doing something, probably saving us £200–300 in the process. So that is this house, fairly straightforward buy, refurb, refinance. What do you think this house would be worth? I'm telling you it's in Rishton, it's a 3-bed house. When it's all done up, you've seen the kind of content, the kind of quality that we put out in terms of our finished refurbs. How much do you think this house would be worth? Drop a comment below.